A cold late winter morning, March 18, 1964. The air in Hazleton, Pennsylvania, hung crisp and still, carrying the faint scent of coal smoke. Frost still clung to the edges of window panes, shimmering in the nascent light. 9-year-old Marise Chivarella, her small frame bundled against the chill, clutched her worn gloves tightly. A quiet excitement bubbled within her. It was a day of celebration, the eve of St. Joseph's feast day, and Marise was bringing canned goods to St. Joseph's Academy as an offering. Her school bag, heavier than usual with the donations, swung gently against her side as she stepped out, her breath pluming in the frigid air. The walk was just 5 or 6 blocks, a familiar route she'd taken countless times, past rows of neat houses and slumbering storefronts. But on this morning, a morning that began like any other, Marise would never reach her destination. The morning hours stretched on, quiet and unremarkable for most of Hazleton. But in the Chivarella home, a subtle shift began. Lunchtime arrived, and Marise did not. Her older brothers, Barry and Carmen, returned home, their boisterous energy momentarily quelled by the unusual quiet. They expected to find Marise already there, perhaps helping their mother, or eagerly awaiting their return. When she wasn't, a knot of dread, cold and insistent, began to form in their father's stomach. Dismissing his initial unease as youthful tardiness, he sent Carmen back to the school, a simple errand that quickly became tinged with unspoken fear. Carmen, a growing sense of unease mirroring his father's, hurried back to the quiet halls of St. Joseph's. He notified Marise's teacher, a woman whose initial confusion quickly morphed into alarm. She, in turn, alerted the head priest. The homeroom teacher's confirmation was stark and chilling. Marise was absent, marked so for all morning classes. A terrifying realization dawned, spreading through the school like a cold whisper. Something had gone terribly, irrevocably wrong. Marise's father, the knot of dread now a vise around his chest, began his frantic search. His calls echoed through the neighborhood, his steps quickening with each unanswered question. He pounded on doors, his voice hoarse with burgeoning panic. As he moved through the increasingly anxious streets, a neighbor called out, her voice sharp with a chilling certainty, her words cutting through the rising hysteria. "If you're looking for the little girl, they found her." The world tilted on its axis, the ground beneath him suddenly unstable. 3 miles away, in a desolate area known as the Stripping Grounds, a former coal mine in Hazel Township, now a landscape of scarred earth and discarded refuse, Arthur Robinson and his nephew were driving. The terrain was grim, forgotten, a stark monument to a fading industry. Robinson noticed something unusual, a small splash of color about 25 feet down a slope from a garbage dump. He initially thought it was a doll, perhaps discarded by a child, a benign piece of refuse in a sea of waste. But as he drew closer, a cold, sickening clarity pierced through the mundane. The horrifying truth emerged, stark and undeniable. It was the body of a little girl. He immediately contacted the state police, his voice trembling with shock. The sirens, a mournful wail against the bleak backdrop of the stripping grounds, soon pierced the cold air. Priests from St. Joseph's Academy, Marise's school, rushed to the scene, their faces etched with sorrow, to administer last rites, a common, somber practice in those days, a final blessing for a life brutally cut short. One of them, a man who knew the children of the parish intimately, recognized the small, still form. He positively identified her as Marise Ann Chivarella, whispering her name into the biting wind. Marise's body lay at the bottom of an embankment, a stark, tragic tableau. Her hands and feet were bound, cruelly restricted. Deep, cruel ligature marks encircled her delicate neck, indicating a brutal strangulation. Her stockings and underwear were pulled down to her thighs, a horrifying testament to the violation she had suffered. A scarf, a babushka, was stuffed into her mouth, a desperate attempt to silence her. Yet, her blue jacket, her outermost clothing, appeared remarkably clean, suggesting she had been placed there, not dragged, a chilling detail implying a deliberate, calculated act of disposal. In 1964, DNA evidence was still decades away, a futuristic whisper in the realm of forensic science. Investigators meticulously searched the grim scene, sifting through the dirt and debris for any blood evidence the perpetrator might have left, any microscopic clue to guide them. The coroner's autopsy confirmed the brutal truth. Marise had been sexually assaulted, strangled, and beaten. A severe bruise on her abdomen suggested a powerful blow, causing internal damage that contributed to her death. Detectives interviewed Marise's parents, her siblings, and neighbors within a 5-block radius, desperately trying to reconstruct her final, fatal steps. The timeline placed her departure from home shortly after 8:00 a.m., a window of time now haunted by unimaginable horror. As the investigation unfolded, a palpable fear gripped Hazleton. The town, once a picture of quiet normalcy, was suddenly vulnerable, suspicion poisoning the air. The town was rife with speculation, a low hum of anxiety. Was it one of our neighbors? People whispered behind locked doors, the uncertainty breeding a pervasive terror. The funeral was an overwhelming outpouring of grief, a collective wail of anguish from a community shattered. The church was packed. The lines for the viewing stretched out the door, testament to the profound sorrow. A newspaper headline, stark and uncompromising, captured the raw agony. Farewell kiss from mother as coffin closed. It was a searing, public reminder of a parent's worst nightmare, the unbearable question echoing through the community, haunting every quiet moment. Why? Why would anyone inflict such horror on an innocent child? By the end of 1964, despite tireless efforts, leads in the case had evaporated. The initial flurry of activity faded into quiet desperation. The murder of the girl who left for school and never came home went cold, like the harsh winter winds that swept through Hazleton, leaving behind only the chill of unanswered questions and enduring sorrow. The case file grew thicker but colder, a silent monument to a crime that defied resolution, a child's ghost haunting the town's collective memory. For 43 long years, Marise Chivarella's case remained unsolved, a raw wound in the heart of Hazleton. The family endured year after year, with no answers, no justice. Then, in 2007, a flicker of hope emerged. With the advent of advanced forensic technology, offering new possibilities unimaginable in 1964, investigators re-examined Marise's clothing. The re-examination room was sterile, quiet, the garments handled with painstaking care. This time, a microscopic hunt on her blouse located a crucial piece of evidence: seminal fluid. From that tiny, almost invisible stain, a DNA profile for a potential suspect was finally obtained, a ghost of the killer, finally given a form. Investigators uploaded the profile to CODIS, the National DNA Database, a moment of high anticipation. But the silence that followed was crushing. There was no match. The individual either had been deceased for a considerable time, pre-dating the widespread collection of DNA samples, or had never been mandated to submit a DNA sample. Once again, the investigation stalled, hitting another wall of frustrating silence. 3 years later, in 2017, the case received a new investigator and renewed hope. Corporal McAndrew, the previous lead investigator, a man who had dedicated years to Marise's case, retired. The massive case file, over 6,000 pages thick, a testament to decades of tireless work, landed on a new desk. CPL. McAndrew, with remarkable foresight, had been exploring a groundbreaking new technology: forensic genetic genealogy. This technique, still nascent but incredibly promising, could take a DNA sample and provide a snapshot of an individual's ethnicity, building a family tree from genetic markers by linking it to public genealogical databases. The decision was made to invest in this cutting-edge science, sending the precious sample out in May 2018, hoping for a miracle. The report arrived in October. The investigation was about to take an unprecedented turn. In February 2020, Eric Schubert, a student researching cold cases in Pennsylvania, stumbled upon Marise Chivarella's story. Hazleton was only 80 miles from his college, and the article haunted him, the chilling narrative of a child lost so close to his campus, stirring a profound sense of justice within him. He sent an earnest, bold email to the investigators, offering his expertise in genealogical research. They met at a coffee shop on his campus, the air thick with purpose. Schubert came prepared, as if for a job interview, his youth belying his intense focus. The investigators, cautiously optimistic, provided him with the anonymized DNA profile, which had already been uploaded to a publicly available genealogical database. Schubert began the painstaking, methodical process of constructing family trees, navigating the vast, intricate web of genetic connections. He made a calculated decision, focusing on one side of the family that appeared most promising, a strategic narrowing of focus amidst the sheer volume of data. This led him, piece by painstaking piece, to a large family with Italian lineage, bearing the surname Palmino. The next step was clear and incredibly delicate. Obtain DNA samples from living relatives to narrow the search, patiently explaining the sensitive nature of the request.